All right. So welcome to the Adult Ed presentation for Sunday, May 10th, Working Differently in Different Times. I'd like to open us up with a prayer. Holy and gracious God, we give thanks for this day and for the chance we have to learn from one another. Especially we give thanks for the teachers, for the educators, for the faculty, for the staff, for those who care for our youngest. We give thanks for their diligence, for their faithfulness, and for their dedication. We pray that your blessings may be upon all of them. Amen. So we have 4 different panelists today, and I am going to unmute the panelists. And let's see, unmute Jenny and Kate, unmute. And then where is Matt? There you are. So the 4 panelists today, we have Matt Vandy Sandy, who's a middle school teacher, technical ed teacher at Glacier Creek. We have Kate Sargent, who's an upper-level elementary teacher from Madison Community Montessori School. We have Jen Sauer, an English teacher from Eagle School, and Jenni von Bergen, who is a middle school counselor from Glacier Creek. So I'm just wondering, just first, just to get a sense of who's talking, I would recommend going to speaker view instead of gallery view at this time, so that way you will be able to see the people who are talking as they are talking. So if you are familiar with Zoom enough to go to speaker view, do that. If not, gallery view will function just fine. So now that we're in speaker view, Kate, would you care to say something?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Sargent. Thank you for joining us today. And happy Mother's Day to those of you who are mothers or have mothers or are celebrating in other ways. Jeff, should I start with the first question that I have prepared?
I'll ask that in a moment. I'm going to let other people introduce themselves first.
Great.
Jen, would you care to say hi?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jen Sauer. It's great to see everybody here. It's so strange to be Zooming with you, just as strange as it is to Zoom with my students every day. But it is so wonderful to see everybody's face. Looking forward to sharing.
Thank you. And to draw a distinction, Jen Sauer and Jenni von Bergen. I will refer to Jen as Jen and Jenni as Jenny, even though I'm sure we could interchange them without too much consternation. Although Jen Sauer, I don't think I've ever heard you called Jenny.
No, not a thing.
All right, Jenny.
Hello, I'm Jenni von Bergen, and I'm also looking forward to the panel today.
Wonderful. I'm repositioning my camera so I'm not as backlit. Matt, would you care to say hi and enough words so I can reposition my camera?
Okay, it's called Night at the Improv with Pastor Jeff. My name is Matt Vandy Sandy. I teach technology, education, and engineering. To the older people in the group, it would be considered industrial arts. So my class involves a lot of hands-on activities. At Glacier Creek, we have 5th through 8th graders. The 5th graders are in a separate wing, and they don't take technology education, but 6th, 7th, and 8th graders do. And Jeff, do you need me to continue on, or are you ready to go?
You did it. Thanks for vamping.
You betcha.
So we have a few questions that we've prepared, and we have asked them of the panelists ahead of time. So I'm going to start by asking people specifically the questions, and then after each question is asked, if there's anything that has come up, Matt, Jen, Jenny, or Kate, could just pipe up and let me know. So we will start with Kate. So Kate, what do you want people to know about your work during the pandemic?
Okay, so I think what I would like to say on behalf of all teachers is that there is a lot of work that is going on behind the scenes. And I think we're very lucky in Covenant to have a very patient and generous community. And I feel very lucky that the particular parents who I've been working with have been very understanding of this too. But in general, I get a sense just from, Facebook groups and the news that some people are wondering, what are teachers doing all day? So I wanted to share some of the things that we're doing. We are creating so many new lessons, and learning how to teach them in a different way. And personally, as a Montessori teacher, I do a lot of work in the classroom with students with actual materials, and it's all very sensorial. So to then have to move to no contact, no materials, it's really a challenge, but I'm surprised at how resilient my students have been. And some of them have even tried to make some of the materials at home out of cardboard or clay, which is pretty cool. Technology has been obviously a huge shift in our work. We've had crash courses in platforms that are brand new to us, things that have really silly, crazy names like Seesaw and Epic and ReadWorks and iCivics and all of these websites that students are having to get on, maybe with the help of their families or independently. And these learning platforms are new for many of us teachers too. And I definitely feel for the parents, especially those who are working or working outside of the home. As teachers, we are understanding of the fact that everyone is doing the very, very best that they can at home. And I just think too, as family members of students, it's important for all of us to have realistic expectations for our children, ourselves, and the teachers who work with our children, because this is a new territory for all of us. And I know a lot of people are concerned, will the children fall behind? Will they be ready to move up to the next grade or prepared for whenever we get back into schools? And the great news is we're all in the same boat. Everybody is at home, so we will figure it out when we're all back together. Teachers, parents are amazing, so I'm sure these children will be just fine when we finally do get back into school.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. Anybody else have any thoughts on that from the panel? Great. So Jenni, how has your job been affected?
Well, first of all, I think I would share, I don't know if a lot of people know what a school counselor does. It's changed over the years, and it's different than when I was in high school and there was a guidance counselor who kind of helped me prepare for after high school. So I actually work at the same school as Matt, and I am a counselor for 7th grade, but it's a school of 5th through 8th graders. And during my week, I see kids individually who might be either struggling at school or struggling with something at home that need somebody to talk to. I run groups, social emotional groups. So sometimes it might be on different mindfulness strategies or ways to help when people are feeling worried. I've run changing family groups, grief groups, and then I also teach a few classes, usually on social emotional lessons. So all of that has to translate into doing things via video conference now. I'll be curious to hear what Matt has to say, but I have found that middle school students are very reluctant to one-on-one to do video conference with me. So it's a lot of phone calls when I'm meeting one-on-one with a kid, just checking in with them. And a lot of times we're starting out talking about the transition of going to online learning, because that's a big jump, because our students left not knowing that school was going to be canceled, and then everything kind of shut down. So there was no real like person-to-person transition where they got to, ask questions to teachers in person before they left about how this online learning works. I'm able to run small groups via video conference. They look different, but it's just like this, where we're talking about a coping strategy and how we use that day to day. And then I also have developed a lesson, actually a couple lessons, either via video conference or Zoom, where it's shared with all the students. And then one of my lessons is where, students are, again, sharing which type of coping strategies they've been using through this.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else from the panel care to say anything about how their job has been affected?
Yeah, I would say that what I've really noticed is that I see my students, see them less. Um, I teach 8th grade English with a few 7th graders thrown in at a school that is K through 8, and it's a small school. I teach a grand total of 32 students spread out over 3 separate classes of groupings. And so I'm accustomed to seeing my students when we're in real life school about 4.5 hours a week. And now I see them 1.5 to 2 hours a week. And I've been surprised at how much I miss their physical presence and our physical interaction. It's less material. I mean, and Kate, I'm sure it's not just materials based for you either, but for me, it's less about not having the materials and more about lacking those individual conferences that we use to talk about their writing and then to talk about lots of other things too. And so that that has changed my interaction with them. One thing that has stayed the same is that I've always thankfully used Google Docs to comment on their writing. So the writing instruction that I do is a lot of give and take. It's a lot of asking questions on docs and having them respond and giving them feedback that way. So that has been a nice little through line in my job, but I'm learning how much I also use that interaction. Also, Jenny, I'm realizing too how I rely on those flybys with our guidance counselor. Like, hey, let me just grab you a second and ask you about so-and-so. What are you seeing with him or her? And because that isn't a thing, now it's much more emailing. There's even less of a feel for how students are doing. So that's been a real change in my job.
Thanks, Jen. The next question is for Matt. How has your faith come into play through this?
Well, first of all, happy Mother's Day. Thanks for having us. I work with Jennifer, and she recruited me. First of all, she does a great job at what she does. It's kind of like the unsung hero of the school. Lets us know ahead of time when we're getting students that have challenges, and we all do. And she's awesome at letting us know what's coming up, or we're getting a new student that has this. So I applaud Jennifer for giving us as teachers a heads up on what they do. My faith, I've learned to slow down. Don't move too fast. Make the good times last. But I could go on. But what it does is you miss, I think a lot of us as teachers miss that interaction with the kids, the physical, to see them and, you know, joke with them in the hallway and that kind of stuff you miss. So I pray with the kids that they're safe and sound. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, we teach middle school, which is a totally different animal. Kids are learning where they fit in society. They have the hormone change. They're kind of all over the place. So I miss those kids, the same checking in with like, how are you doing? And not checking in as a teacher in regards to their assignment, but checking in with them, how they're doing in life. And so when I look at my faith, it's like, give me the strength to help support them in any way that I can, even though it's from a distance. What can I do to help those students that I don't want to help, I don't want to see fall through the cracks? It's made me think. I'll pray and say, you know, what else can I do? And start to think outside the box and collaborate with other teachers, not only in our district, but outside our district, as to what are they doing? And what can we do to help the kids? You really feel for them, especially the kids that are in our free and reduced lunch program, that they don't have the food. So you're praying that they're using the resources available to them so that they can get to their basic needs. I'm also like, my faith is, I'm trusting that we have the medical people and healthcare people working hard, and they are doing a great job. And we had Nurses Week, and they're the unsung heroes of all the healthcare, what's going on. And I just keep, you know, saying, what else can I do? I'm not on the front line. What can I do? And I hope other people that aren't on the front line, what can we do? I'm not going to find the cure for it, well, what can I do to help other people support themselves and to grow and cope with this? Because it is such a unique time for kids that you miss seeing them. You hope everything's well. And there's always a question I ask is, are we reaching out to them? Not worrying about did they get the assignment done, but how are they doing in life? Because life is so much more important than school right now. And your attitude is going to take you a lot further than your aptitude.
Thank you, Matt. That really is an example of the servant's heart at work that I think we see in our faith. Any other thoughts on that from the panel?
I just have one thought that I feel like in my role at the school, you know, with quarantine and being in our houses, it would be very easy to not have passive participation. And I feel like as Christians, we're called to go out and do things. And I feel like as in my role that I'm able to have that active participation in my faith to help others. So.
Thanks, Jenny. The next question is for Jen. What have you learned about your job that you didn't know before?
One thing that I realized right away after about week 1 of remote teaching was how physical my actual job is when I'm in the school. When I'm direct teaching, I'm always standing and I'm told, well, look at it, I just did it. And I'm told I'm an arm talker. So there's that. And then when I'm not direct teaching, when students are working in their seats, I'm circulating, I'm crouching down by them, I'm pulling them out in the hall and we sit cross-legged on the floor and we talk about things. And now I just sit on my tushy all day in this chair and stare at the screen. So it sounds minor, but it really is something I've learned about what my day-to-day job is usually like that I never really thought about before. I also learned about how important that seating is. My students in my real room sit in a horseshoe so that we can have good conversation and I can see them all and they can see each other. And this whole Zoom formation thing has just, it surprised me how important just the physical arrangement of students is to how I am reaching them. Little fun anecdote. A couple weeks ago, I couldn't figure out why one of my students, he seemed to be looking not at the camera here, but over here, and he was kind of half out of the frame. And then I realized, oh, he's sitting in a gaming chair. And that flashing that I'm seeing on his face is actually like a video game he's playing while we're in the middle of class. So clearly, you know, that's not the kind of thing that can happen when they're sitting in their cute little horseshoe in my classroom. And I'm just learning how much I rely on that physical interaction. I've also had an interesting realization about tech tools because I've always used a decent amount of technology in my teaching. I have a smart board in my classroom and I use Google Classroom a lot. But when we came home to teach, I was actually kind of dreading having to integrate more technology and to lose all of that more spontaneous real-time teaching. But what I've learned that has surprised me is that certain of my students who were less inclined to just jump into a conversation actually use some of those tech tools as a way to participate in a way they wouldn't ordinarily. So that's been really great. Like I've used a tool for the first time called Padlet, where it's basically just a bulletin board, but you can use it in real time. And students can respond to a prompt or a question by just typing their thoughts on this little Padlet. And I've been hearing from a few students who are usually much more reticent to give their 2 cents. So I've learned that, wow, you know, when all of this is over, and I go back to real life teaching, it'll be great to actually continue with some of that technology that helps amplify some of the quieter students' voices.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. It is amazing how much having people in person does affect things. Just I'm thinking about preaching too. Preaching to a computer is very different than preaching to people. Like I can see when people are sleeping during this during church, but it's a little harder recorded. Anybody else from the panel would like to share? What have you learned about your job that you didn't know before?
One thing I've learned is my class is all hands-on, and now trying to do that via technology is a challenge, not only for the students, but also for any teacher that has a hands-on type course. So it's made us think, how can I present that same material and get the same information across, same lesson in a different format? So it's challenged us as a teacher, and I'm still working on it. It's still a work in progress.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else want to share? All right. Well, back to you, Matt. If you could go back in time, what is it, 8 weeks ago now, 9 weeks ago, what advice would you have given yourself before this started?
Well, if I could go back in time, I'd get in my DeLorean, go about 88 miles per hour, and gigawatts would just be cruising back to the future and find a cure for this coronavirus at an earlier stage. One thing I would do if I go back in time and tell Matt Vandy Sandy 8 weeks ago, relax, we're going to get through it. Take some deep breaths. This is, it's a little bit of a growth construction in the life of path. How I like to look at things is you're on a road, and your life is like you're on a road or a path. And some of the things that you have to look at is sometimes you're going to hit a hill and it's going to be a struggle to get up the hill. And sometimes you're going to come down the hill and it's going to be fast and fun and everything. Sometimes you might hit a detour or a speed bump, and how you're going to overcome those, or what's your next challenge. So what I like to do is, as you're driving in a car, you look forward. You glance every now and then at the rearview mirrors, but we can't do much of what's happened in the past except for learn from the past. So we learn from the past that next time, if this happens, which I'm guessing next year, that we'll be back teaching online. I won't be surprised by it. So knowing that I want to prepare, I'm starting to prepare now for next fall of what I can do. If we're back in school, great. If not, what I'm going to do now is plan for it. So some of the things I'm doing now, and will continue over the summer. So, going back and saying, hey, relax. It's going to be okay. Keep going forward though. Keep in your car. You're going to have the speed bumps and the detours, as I mentioned, but moving forward, what can we do different? And you have to listen not only to yourself, but input from others. The more you talk about to other people, you get different ideas. You'll listen to your students, what worked, what didn't work, ask for their input. The more information you can gather is going to help us as teachers be better at what we're doing in this new era of teaching online. By the way, I would still like to get in a DeLorean and go 88 gigawatts.
I would probably invest in Zoom too. Anybody else from the panel?
I guess if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, like Matt, I would say, just relax and let it go. Like certain things, you just have to let it go because it's not going to be the same. And I think as teachers, we all tend to be, if we could generalize, teachers, I think, are perfectionists, and it's never good enough. And you want to keep perfecting, and it's just not going to be perfect, and not making perfect be the enemy of the good. I would tell myself, don't do that. Just roll with it and it'll be fine. And also I would tell my previous self, look out for the kids that you think are going to be the ones who are totally fine. Because what has fascinated me is that some of the kids who in school are the most, seem the most pulled together, independent, self-motivated, are the ones who have had the hardest time when we've moved to this environment, kind of making this work. They've been overwhelmed. They've felt, and it's probably, especially given the population I work with, it's probably this perfectionism, and they realize they can't be perfect, and so they sort of freeze, and their kids who are normally totally on time and with it are just not turning in work. They're not showing up for class. I would tell my former self, look out for the high flyers, because they may be the ones who have the hardest time of all.
Wow, thanks. Anyone else? All right, this is the last question we have written down, and then we'll go into question and answer after this. So Kate, what are some things that you will take forward, some good things that you'll move forward with from this time once things return back to whatever normal happens to be when we get there?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me, Jen, you're totally right. I am a perfectionist, and I was very concerned about how do I keep this relationship of like, I'm the teacher, I know how to educate the children, and you are the parents, and you take care of them when I'm not with them, and we both have our little bubbles, to now like, we're texting each other, we're talking to each other on like 24 hours a day. You're sending me pictures of your child. You know what my bedroom looks like, which is the room I'm in right now. Like, I think I've learned, instead of being nervous about that, to just realize I am such an adaptable person, and I didn't realize that about myself. I didn't know that I could adapt to this, and I also didn't realize how much building these stronger and like I guess like more homey, family feeling relationships with the students and their parents, that makes me feel so good. I feel like I'm having genuine conversations with these families in ways that have never been available before when you just are emailing or doing 2 parent teacher conferences and some report cards. I feel like we're seeing each other with such mutual respect and with such grace, and it's becoming so clear, even in those families that are always a little like, I don't know if you really agree with everything I say or if we're on the same page. It's so clear everyone is just trying their best, and I really want to keep up with that community building and keep that nice and strong. And then like what you said, Matt, I think, slowing down is good, and it's nice not to be rushing everywhere and rushing everyone. Come on, we got to go to fitness and wellness now. We've got to go to art class, put your shoes on. Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's just like, okay, we have this time and you have this time at home, and let me know when you have a question. And some of my deep thinkers, I think, are really thriving in this environment because they have an entire day to get back to me if they want before they get back with an answer. And then I just think I need to be more grateful for my time with students. There have definitely been moments where I've been outside on recess duty, counting down the minutes until the bell rings because I'm freezing, or it's kind of starting to drizzle, or I've had to watch another one of those magic shows that the kids try and do. And I miss it so much. I would give anything to stand outside in this weather right now, watching my 30 students. I would do anything for that, for their messy cubbies and for their lunches that are like leaking applesauce out onto our carpet. I would give anything for that. So I just cannot wait for those moments and to just be more appreciative when they arise again.
Thanks, Kate. Others, other thoughts?
I really feel like, and I think this is happening in a lot of districts, but the message we got as online schooling was starting in Middleton was, we are most concerned about everybody's well-being. And that is the most important thing as we go on to online schooling. And I just really felt like they said that to teachers and to families and to students, and I hope that continues. Like, I hope, and I think our district always has, but it was a message that was very loud and clear in our district that they wanted to focus on this. And so I appreciate that focus and hope that continues.
Thanks. Others? Well, before we start the question and answer session, I want to just say what I already knew to be true, that teachers, faculty, people who work in the schools are just amazing. And so, everybody's muted, but if we can do a little round of applause for them, just really beyond, beyond. And I'm so impressed and thrilled at the work that you do and the ways that you care for those kids. I'd like to take the time now to open up. We can do 10 minutes for question and answer. So raise your hand if you have a question, and we can ask it of the panel. Yeah, Charlie. Oh,
I'm part of a book club through Rotary, and we've had 2 online meetings. I'm relatively new to Rotary and new to the book club, but all the people in the book club have said that the online meetings have been more thorough and more engaging than our usual meetings, which happen in restaurants. Conversations easier. So a couple of people kind of talked about things that are better in this time. And I'd just love to hear more about that from the teaching angle. Like what's really working and what can we take from this? I'm trying to figure that out from a church angle as well. I've got as much Zoom fatigue as anybody and tired staring at a screen and talking to people on the phone and sending emails for pastoral care instead of sitting with people and holding hands and saying prayers together. But I'd be curious to hear a little bit more if there are blessings in this situation from you teachers.
I guess one of the blessings I've had from this is I'm blessed to have support with my family at home. Our daughter Megan graduated yesterday with a master's in social work, so props to my daughter. But she's been home to help me with Google Docs. My wife's been supportive on those things. But what has helped me do is just think differently of how I can do the same thing in a different format. How can I get the same lesson across? How I can develop new things and still get a message across, that you really start to think outside the box of different ways to do things. It's important, I also think, to collaborate with other people to get ideas from them. We have Zoom meetings and, talk to other people, from how are you doing this to what child, I'm not hearing anything from this child. Can you give me an update on them? Okay, they're doing something else or concentrating on a different subject, but I guess it makes you become more creative. And I'm not a creative person, but I'm starting to become, because I have to think differently of how I'm going to present things.
Others want to tackle that question? I see your hand, Deb. I'll call on you after the response here.
I guess along those lines of what's working, and it's sort of what do I hope continues and what do I know needs to continue regardless, is that one thing that has made this remote teaching possible for me, I'm realizing, is that it happened later in the year and that we had a strong class family, a strong community. And it has cemented for me just the utter importance of community building from day one and having relationships with every single student in your class. Because what I found is it's gone better than I could have ever anticipated. Students reaching out to me via email, students really doing what needs to be done and knowing my expectations, my rules. I mean, the sort of understandings that we had come to as a class. And without that, it's really hard to imagine how this would have worked as well as it has. So moving forward, just one fear I have, which is the flip side of this, is that needing to do this from the beginning of the year terrifies me, because you're starting with a group that you have never been with in the normal sense. So how to do that community building with a brand new group of students really scares me a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Jenni, Kate? All right. Deb, I'm going to unmute you.
So I just wanted to ask, what kind of reaction are you getting from parents? I think this must be so challenging for parents of younger children, well, probably all the way through high school. I feel really fortunate that I'm not at that stage of life right now.
I can answer a little bit. I think most of the families are feeling incredibly overwhelmed. I'm doing what I can to provide as many options as possible. So I have options that are very tech heavy for families that have computers and printers. I'm offering ones that are also very like low technology for parents who maybe don't have computer and printing availability, but trust their children to go outside independently. I'm giving a lot of suggestions for like at home kinds of work, like that involve maybe supervising younger siblings. So just really trying to brainstorm what every particular family needs. Because some of these families I know are just, they're looking for so many different things and they have so many different things available to them and opportunities to provide their children. Some can be very hands-on, some don't have the time. I have a family where both parents are nurses, so the child is at home 3 days a week with his younger sister and then is with grandparents 2 times a week. And for him, I'm just saying, like, read for 20 minutes in the morning and the afternoon, draw, make sure you're coming to Zoom calls, be good to your grandparents, clean up after yourself for lunch, like just really survival mode. But I haven't had any parents say, this is so great. I think it's a struggle for the majority, at least from my perspective.
I will say, if you saw me leave my room while Jen was talking, it's not because I objected to her, but because I needed to start a new episode of Paw Patrol. So I get it.
I think one other thing is you have to understand the parents' needs. I sent out an assignment and I said, print this off and do the assignment and then take a picture, scan it and send it back to me. One of the parents emailed back, we don't have a printer. Things that we take for granted, you have to understand not everybody has that. Everyone thinks like the Milton Cross Plains School District is a very affluent community, yet a third of our students are on free and reduced lunch and they have different needs. So when that parent says, hey, we don't have a printer, I'm like, okay, do this instead. So you have to adapt the things that the parents can do and make it accommodating for them so that they feel successful too. Because right now the parent's role is they're the parent, they're the care provider, they're the teacher, they're the breadwinner, they're the healthcare person at their house. They're wearing lots of different hats. So whatever we can do to help reduce their stress, because if we help reduce their stress, it'll help the kids because they can pick up on that stress. So like whatever we can do to help the parents, we're going to do.
I'm really feeling for some of my younger colleagues right now who actually are teaching online and also have young children of their own whom they are dealing with, the schooling. Well, Jenni, I'm sure you're dealing with this. It's just, I look at their lives and I just feel so grateful that I happen to be at the phase that I am. I have 2 college students home with me right now, but they're very self-sufficient and actually helpful sometimes. And to imagine, I have one colleague who just had a baby. She's just coming off maternity leave and she's got a preschooler and she's teaching full time. And that is so difficult to be wearing 2 hats simultaneously like that. I just can't imagine.
Thank you. Barb, I see you. I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, my question is if there's been any sort of teachers forum, even on a small group, where you guys can share ideas, or if you've all been sort of trying to figure out your own situation.
At Glacier Creek, I'm the 7th grade counselor, so I meet with the 7th grade teachers to find out what the needs of 7th grade students are. But then I also meet with other counselors from both middle schools, once a week with my own counselors, and then once every other week with the counselors at Cromrie, so that we can both generate ideas on how this works. But there's also there's been a lot of trainings, I feel like nationwide, like through my professional organization. There have been several webinars, some that are so full, people can't even get on because people want the information on how, like, for example, in my field, it's one of the really popular ones was like the mental health during COVID-19. So I feel like there has been a lot of resources, and the school has been, we meet via Zoom to make sure to collaborate, just like we would as if we were at school.
No, see, I just walked in here. No, from my perspective, it seems to me it's very much almost survival, though, because there's so much needs. Like, I don't know if you have a lot of time to do a lot of coordination with other staff, just because of the sheer quantity of needs of people that are at home. She's making calls at 4 and 5 at night, or 6 at night, sometimes with families, because she couldn't get through them through the day. So way outside the bounds of the typical, teacher type hours is one of the things I've noticed. I was right over there.
I would like the record to reflect Nick von Bergen is not part of this panel. He'll be part of the panel in a couple weeks about healthcare workers. So there's a preview for you. Yeah, Kate, Jen, or Matt. Kate, it looks like you might have something to say, if I'm not mistaken.
I was just going to say, I think, Steve, are you raising your hand too? I want to make sure we get to his question as well. Okay. No, I think Jenny covered it. Yeah, you did a great job with that question.
Excellent. So we do have time for just one more question. And Steve, was that you? Yes, you have a question, or thumbs up, you're good. I should unmute you for this.
Yeah, I did have a question. These have all been really good questions and really good talks. We are so lucky to have Kate and Jen and Jenny and Matt to talk to us. Diana and I brag all the time about the incredible public education teachers that we have in Wisconsin, and especially in Dane County. So thank you guys, and please thank your colleagues for what you're doing right now. We so appreciate it. My question, if you could just tell us in general terms, what kind of questions and thoughts you're getting from those tweens and the young teens that, are the ones that are desperately trying to be adults, but still really just want to be kids, and how they're coping with this. What kind of thoughts are they sharing with you?
I teach both 6th and 8th graders. So when the pandemic hit, we were just in the process of transitioning from 3rd quarter to 4th quarter. So the 6th graders take it for a quarter. So the current 75 kids I have not met personally. But for them, some of them, as I send out the assignment, 5 minutes later, like, okay, I'm done. What do I do next? What do I do next? And I'm like, okay, just slow it down. I'm eager beaver. That's great, but you're not the only one. So you got to kind of hold them reins back on them. And then I got 8th graders who I've had all year, who see the light at the end of the tunnel, that they're going to be out of middle school and into high school, and they're challenged to motivate because they know they're going to pass. They're going on to high school. So you got the kids that are, I'm so excited. I really can't wait to do this. The other ones are like, yeah. So it's trying to, convince both of them what you're doing is good, and continue with it. I noticed with the 8th graders, boys in general, they got it on coast mode right now. It's a challenge to get them engaged to do some of the things. But that's also middle school. It's a challenge because they're both like, what do I want to do? I haven't met my teacher, and I want to make sure I'm making a good impression. And the other one's like, I'm going to be out of middle school and in high school soon. So it's a balancing act to keep them both engaged.
Yeah, my 8th graders are sharing a lot about the sadness they feel. They're missing out on so many of those transitional moments we do so much at the end of the school year, especially it's such a small community. And especially for those who've been there since kindergarten, this is their 9th year, some of them at this school, and they're about to go, most of them, to much larger, very different school environments. And, you know, our 8th grade graduation has been moved online. They missed their trip to Washington, D.C. I usually take them out on the playground and they do a creative writing exercise all by themselves where they reflect on where they've come and where they hope to go. You know, we're not able to do any of those things that allow them to reflect and wrap up and move on with a sense of closure. And so they're expressing a lot of just really sadness about that. I'm surprised at how open a lot of them are about that.
I want to add too, I feel like tweens, it's a time that they learn about themselves from their friendships and their peers. And so between my students and my own middle school kids, I feel like they're missing their friends a lot. I mean, you can connect via FaceTime and all these other things, which I do think is great, and I'm so thankful they have that. But it's not the same as the daily, like sitting and eating lunch with them and discussing their day and the funny things that happen. So I think they miss their friends.
I would agree. And I think the best suggestion that I've received and then tried and had some good results with is to just listen to what the students are saying and then ask them, like, what questions do you have about what's happening or things like that. So for example, we have a lot of transitional celebrations as well, going from 6th grade to then into our adolescent program. So they missed out on like the camping trip and, you know, all these things that they look forward to all year. So last Friday we had a Zoom call with just 6th graders. And of course I know that we can't go do a camping trip, but they're still like, Miss Kate, I think we should have a spaghetti dinner. And I think that, you know, we just have a 7th grade camping trip with our 6th grade teacher next fall, and then we'll all be together. So I just am hearing them out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this down. Thank you for your thoughts. In the meantime, what can we do? And what they decided is they want to have a 6th grader only Zoom dance party where they get to pick the music and they're all going to have pizza and pop at it, and it's going to be on a Friday night at the last Friday in June, and that's what they decided. So I think just like listening, hearing them out, trying to be like, you know, thoughtful and understanding of where they're coming from, but then giving them something that's really positive and just trying to turn it a bit. And the social aspect, you know, they miss it, they're sad, so trying to find a new tradition perhaps for them to look forward to. Seems successful so far, but yeah.
The rights, yeah, go ahead, Matt.
The one thing I was going to add is, you know, the students miss each other, and I get that. I miss my Glacier Creek family of seeing them. I miss my Covenant Presbyterian family. I miss seeing them. I miss my neighborhood friends, the guys and gals that I hang out with. Right now you have just your family at home, and maybe you have kids and your spouse, and maybe we were starting to get on each other's nerves because we've been together for so long. But you miss sort of that contact and seeing the other people that you can't get via a Zoom meeting, where you can just sit around and talk and just get caught up with everyone. Now it's everyone's life, even though we're, you know, basically at home, it's still not the same. And Zoom meetings are a great tool, but I also like being able to, you know, go over and hug somebody and ask how they're doing, and those things I miss. And if we as adults are missing them, you know, the kids are missing them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And once more, so this is the time for us to wrap up. But once more, can we just do a quick, big round of applause for our teachers?
Thank you. Thank you.
It really is just a wonderful blessing to have your witness, to have your wisdom, to have your reflections, to have you as part of Covenant Presbyterian Church, to have you part of the body here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate who you are and what you do. Before we end, I just want to end with a scripture reading from Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do everything through the name of the Lord Jesus. God is honored through the work you do. We are richly blessed. And so I would like to end with a prayer. And I'm wondering if there's anybody who is in on this call who would like to close us with prayer, remembering that it is being recorded. Well, I will do it because I'd like to, but I just thought I'd give you the chance. Holy and wonderful God, this is the day that the Lord has made, and together we rejoice and are glad in it. We give thanks for the witness of your servants, for the work of their hands, and for the ways in which they build community through whatever means possible. We pray that they may find themselves comforted and, I'm sorry, hold on. 1 second, sweetie. I'm in the middle of a prayer. Okay, can you back off for a second?
But I need to say.
Amen. Sorry. Thank you, God, for these people. Amen.